Hey guys, it's Samuel Larsen here from growcourse.com. I am an e-commerce growth consultant, and over the years I have studied strategic for e-commerce stores very intimately with mostly 6 and 7 figure clients. So I've seen over 100 stores from the inside and seen how they win, how they fail, and that has given me a very unique viewpoint on what works and what doesn't. So we're going to look into some strategic frameworks. Now, frameworks or models are a little bit of a simplification of reality. However, simplification of a very complicated reality can be super helpful when it comes to understanding and defining strategy. And we're going to look into building a sustainable competitive advantage over this. So that's called so-called moat in investing. So there's this castle that is super protected because competition cannot cross the moat, and they just cannot come and easily eat away at your market share. So for example, if your store is very copyable, if you are selling the same products that anyone can get from dropshipping, you, in my view, don't really have a sound strategy, or probably you don't have a strategy at all. You just looking to make a quick buck. So here we are talking about it doesn't matter how well the company is doing at this exact moment. If it's going to be swallowed up by the competition, how can we create something that is sustainable? So this approach will be a lot more about how to think rather than what to think. Strategy itself is a big picture thing, and it's very specific to a specific situation. So we're going to think long term and approach it practically step by step. And the goal here is that we will be able to formulate something long term that has ideally multiple tailwinds helping you out, so you don't have to run your business like a really masterful CEO if you have a good strategy in place. So in an ideal world, you have a strategy that is so good that you don't have to be that good because the competition is not knocking on your door at all times. With that said, let's look at some of the models, and these are models that our best clients have implemented and understand as well. So I'm going to start screen sharing from here and see you there. So here we are. Let's look into our first model. This is the so-called value innovation model. So here the core idea is that we are identifying the costs that are not creating value to the customer. So for example, if you have a fulfillment process that has steps that are not creating value to the customer, or if you are offering something additional that is not really bringing value to the customer, you would treat it as a cost and you would just cut it out. So this is a pretty brutal process where you will have to be really honest with which costs can be cut and what is the core of your value offering. And here it doesn't imply just cost cutting, because on the other end we have the buyer value. And here the idea is that if we are able to cut some of the costs that are not creating buyer value, we will then be able to have a bigger middle circle here with the things that create buyer value. So this is a process which we introduce something new to the market, or an upgrade to the existing way of doing things, to achieve both differentiation and low cost. So it's not about being everything to everyone. It is about catering to the core of what matters. So the goal here is to create a new demand and change the market enough to discourage competition from doing the same. So the idea here is that you will be able to find a powerful niche that you'll be able to dominate. And this can be very challenging for many merchants because they are coming from this competition mindset. And this is about going beyond competition. So if you think of like a traditional business literature, it's all about competition. You have the war mindset of beating the competition, competing, etc. Where here it's more about finding a spot in the ocean that is not bloody from all the sharks eating each other. So you are looking for that blue ocean spot by competing a little bit smarter and finding ways to not copy your competitors, but rather go beyond what they are doing. And this is all tying up to the moat concept here. So we are looking for something that is protectable. So if you don't have a unique company, unique offering, then you will be swallowed up by the competition. There's multiple different ways that you can compete. You don't have to have all of these. It would be impossible to have all of these. But if you can grab a couple of these, you probably have a pretty good base for building up your defenses, so to say. So this is a good concept to keep in mind. And if you think of it in terms of traditional dropshipping Shopify stores, they don't have any of these. And as a result, they likely are not going to be very long-term sustainable businesses unless they are able to go beyond their model. So next one, let's look at the e-commerce growth flywheel by Omniconvert. So here, the idea is that as your business goes and does its thing, it actually becomes more competitive. So this is a concept made famous by Amazon. So basically, the more customers they have, the more products they can offer. The more products they can offer, the more customers they can have. And the more customers they can have, the better their fulfillment can be. The better their fulfillment can be, the more customers they can have. So ultimately, they are building this massive, massive flywheel that the more it spins, the faster it spins. So that's a really cool concept. And I think it does apply to smaller merchants as well, because there's definitely a lot of scale advantages when you go from a really small store to a mid-sized store. The scale advantages actually typically go lower as you get bigger, because then you have your required administration already in place. Now, what I love about this model is that it goes and explains the sort of like beginner e-commerce stores, intermediate and advanced e-commerce stores. So if we take again like a beginning e-commerce store, they have a wider circle, or like narrower flywheel here rather. So they are just looking to get customers, make some money, drive some traffic, looking to get customers, make some money, drive some traffic. And as they evolve, they start to perhaps think about the conversion rate a little bit, and maybe have a tiny bit of an idea of the customer retention, but nothing really that sticky and advanced. And then as they evolve, they start looking into customer feedback, looking to create better products, better experiences for the customers, so that they can retain these customers better, perhaps even getting some word of mouth. So here, the word of mouth and the retained customers generate toward this extended profitability. So this is a good way to look into it. You can spot yourself in this flywheel, see which stage you are in, and like ideate on how you can get to the next level. So it is often a bit in steps. And I understand that the beginning store needs to go through this first to just prove their concept. And then they can worry about the larger flywheel once they have their thing going on. But this is also why e-commerce is a tough game, because so many stores get stuck in this first stage where they are just looking to get more traffic to their store, make some money without a really long-term plan here. Let's take an example of this in a practical manner. So here's an example of this. So similar as with the Amazon example, you have your selection, which can help reduce the price as you get some scale. Then you might create get some content, so product reviews, build a brand, these kinds of things. You become more searchable as your domain rankings, etc. improve. And also, of course, the internal search on the store becomes better. As a result, you get more traffic, you retain more of that traffic, you can build up your selection and branding for that. So there's a lot of tailwinds at this point. By the way, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure to do that right now. You obviously like the video, so thumbs up, please. And let's continue over with the next model. So here we have the famous 5 forces model from Michael Porter, who's a really famous and legendary strategy consultant. So here we're going to break this down to its elements. So first, I like to start from the bargaining power of buyers. And the idea here is that you are looking to minimize this bargaining power. Now, the easiest way to minimize this is to be unique, or at least give out an impression that you are unique. So the idea here is to first try to combat the price sensitivity of the buyer. And this can be done by optimizing product pages, trying to give out a higher quality impression. And then you also are taking care of the other different threats at the same time. Because the more unique you are, the higher the switching costs are, the less likely buyers are to substitute the product to something else, and the less likely they are to find a competitor that fits their needs. And here, there's also a strategy that you can niche down oftentimes, because that also gives you more bargaining power compared to customers. So if you have a product like, for example, makeup specifically made for older women, let's say like 65 plus, then there's a lot less competition for that specific age group. So there you have more bargaining power, and it's an easier spot to be. So threat of new entrants. So here, it's a little bit of a similar thing as the bargaining power. So there is overlap here, but you'd want to, for example, have ideally high switching costs, like either mentally or in actuality, where your product is like, for example, the iPhone. It's difficult to switch to Android after you've learned to use the system and after you have iMac, iPhone, etc. But this is also mental. So people have high switching costs from Coca-Cola, for example, although they have a lot of different options to choose at this point. So that's just your branding, how unique you can make it, and how well you can protect yourself from the new entrants and the new substitutes. So to summarize, the more suppliers, the less branding, the less negotiation power you in general have. And the less suppliers you are relying on, the less bargaining power you have here on the bargaining power of suppliers part. So for example, if you're able to have at least a couple of suppliers for your products, then you are definitely in a better position than just having one. And then if it's really easy to get your products, and you explore or you bring yourself into a position where you can get a lot of new entrants to the market, and that way it is unlikely that your business will be able to be highly profitable, because there will be people selling the same things. Now, when it comes to the substitute products, this is something that you can take care of from the branding perspective, but there's always going to be alternatives in the market. So there's no particular product that is completely substitute free. Even if you take some products that appear to be very unique, like let's take like a high power blender, there's still alternatives to that. So people can get a slightly less powerful blender, and they can live with that, for example. And they're like, this is one where you can have some disruptions. So for example, like earphones were disrupted by the earbuds back in the day. Now, all of these factors together form the rivalry among existing competitors. And here you can think of this as the kind of force pushing you backward. So the higher the rivalry, the more headwind you have, and the harder you will need to push. And that will also eat away at your profits. Let's look into the next model. So we have a couple more go. So first of all, this is a great prioritization model. So this is more of an internal model, where the 5 forces model is more of an external model. So here we are looking at goal setting, and this is a good strategic model because you are looking to eliminate waste. So just like we had here on the value innovation model, this is one where we can then be very practical about the waste. So we have 4 buckets here. So must have, it's something that we cannot negotiate about. And generally, the more advanced the business, the less they actually have in this bucket, because they are just very good at saying no to distractions, and they are okay because they understand that the customer wants X, not Y, so they are okay to say no to all the distractions. Second part here is should have. So this is one of those things that are not a top priority, but could have importance later on. Then generally, this is could have buckets and will not have buckets, should be pretty large. So there's a lot of irrelevant things that you are probably pursuing right now. Like a good irrelevant thing oftentimes is like a mobile app. It's a good example of that, because most merchants are not there. but they think that they need it. So with great strategy, remember the musts and perhaps shoulds are also like the biggest buckets out of this. So strategy is a lot about ignoring, eliminating, and sometimes delegating the activities that are not in your core strategy. So for example, like Shopify has plugged itself into a nice position where the merchants can eliminate their technical problems and delegate them to Shopify in a way where they can then focus on their core, which is marketing and products. So here, with this tool, I would urge you to also think long term. What's the effect down the line? You can think of it like expected returns of all these things. There's this good saying of dream in years, plan in months, execute in weeks, and ship daily. And this is a good thing to keep in mind here. All right, 2 more models. These are 2 of my favorites, so stick around. We're gonna get to these. So first, we have the so-called RACE model. So reach, act, convert, engage model. It's quite similar as the Omniconvert's model here, but it's a little bit different. So with this model, you are looking to build your marketing stack in a way. So first, all the stores understandably are focusing on reach. They're looking to find their best traffic channels. And once they find something that shows promise, they oftentimes move part of their focus to act. So there they are thinking of how can we get more out of this current traffic. So that can be landing page, homepage, product page optimization, remarketing, different other opportunities here. And they are all broken down to paid, owned, earned, and experience. So this way you can see if your stack of your marketing stack is imbalanced in some way. So for example, if you have a ton of ideas on the reach stage and you're just doing a ton of things here, but you're not doing anything on the engage stage, then that sort of shows some strategic weakness there, or at least it means that you are not appropriately prioritizing with the right models or frameworks. So here you want to be really balanced and you want to attack your bottleneck. So wherever you are weakest, you should probably focus on, with the exception of if you are not getting any traffic, for example, helping or focusing so much on the engage page probably won't help you much. So this is a long-term model as well, and you need to have the answers to these particular questions of how you are planning to engage and build customer loyalty even beyond your first product. So if you are starting a store, how can you make that into a store with ideally a high amount of repeat purchasability? All right, last model, and this is one where we help our clients with. So this is the Grow Guru's growth model. So if you are looking for help with the conversion average order value optimization for your store, and you are preferably at least 6 figures, sometimes we help 5-figure entrepreneurs as well, but that's rare. If they show a lot of potential, we help them. But here, the idea is that you have your traffic already in place, just because that's the first thing you focus on. And now you are looking to focus on the experience part of it. So optimizing these different pages, perhaps doing some personalization, CRO, etc. So here we can help you in getting more conversions for a higher average order value and grow your store like that. So that's that. If you are interested in this, go to growgurus.com to learn more about this particular model. I have an explanation video there on the front page, and there you will find a way to take it forward with us. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like if you didn't already, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers!